Hi, I'm Tom Jones and welcome to another free art lesson. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina this week, and right now we're having Art in the Carolinas. It's the largest gathering of student artists, teachers, and vendors from all over the world. I hope you can join us. For our next free art lesson, I want to show you how to do palm trees. I've got a couple of variations of palm trees here. Let me take a moment and explain what I mean by that. I have what's called a native or traditional type palm tree that you might see from southern North Carolina all the way down the coastal area, around Florida, over into Texas, and even in the Caribbean, sometimes called a sable palm or a cabbage palm. But it's native to the area and you see them everywhere. Another tree that's common to paint is a coconut palm. And the coconut palm is slightly different, and we'll spend a little time showing you how to paint that one as well. I've got some rough sketches here, and I want to go ahead and start right now with this native palm just to show you how I would approach it. I'm going to talk as we go along because what I have to say I think can be important for you. I've got a small one half inch brush, flat brush, and I'm going to start by painting this particular palm tree using some greens for the palm fronds. One of the things that I want to mention to you is that when you paint these palm fronds, make sure that you're using a variety of greens. You should also note that usually there's some brown in palm trees. Usually the fronds near the bottom, in both cases, whether it's coconut palms or the traditional native palms of Florida and Southeast, they also have those brown colors at the base of the palm tree. So let me give you an example of what I mean. I'm just laying in some color just to show you what these palm trees would look like. So let me go ahead and continue on, and then we'll start painting in some green. Now what I would suggest to you is that you go ahead and paint the palm tree trunks as well. So we'll put in a little color for that. I'll come over and pick up a little green, and we'll add a little green into the tree trunk as well. So let's take a look at doing that. So we have a little variety of color going on. So it's a little bit of the green, a little bit of the burnt sienna, a little bit of the yellow ochre and so forth, just for our tree trunk. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back up to the palm fronds, and we'll start putting in a little bit of this green. So I'm going to again look at some variety of greens. I'll have some light green and maybe a little darker green, and I'm overlapping it with those palm fronds that are at the base, which are technically dead palm fronds, and they're going to fall off eventually. So hopefully not in this painting, but in the real world they would. So let's continue on putting in some of this color, and then I'll show you how simple it is to shape the palm fronds. All I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to watch what I do. I'm taking this 1/2 inch flat brush, and I'm simply going to put in some shapes that give the illusion that these are in fact palm fronds. So all I'm doing is watch what I do is I push and lift, push and lift, push and lift. So we're just putting in the shape of some palm fronds. Very simply, 1, 2, 3, 4, do as many as you want. Just push and lift, push and lift. Don't get too elaborate with it. I would advise you not to get a small round brush and start putting all kinds of little lacy palm fronds or points on these fronds. Just keep it simple. Use a 1/2 inch brush like this and just put in the color. See how simply that is? Now I'm going to do one other thing. I'm going to take a moment. I want to dry this a little bit, and then what we're going to do is we're going to add another layer in here, which is going to give you more depth. So let me go ahead and dry this quickly, and I'll come right back. Now it's completely dry, and it must be for this next part of the painting. The reason I want to dry, I want to put another layer of palm fronds in here just to identify it a little bit more. You can see how flat it is, but this is a good underpainting. See the variety of color going on? So let's step up the pace here now. Let's get some darks, and I'll add, in this case, I'll add just a little bit of ultramarine blue deep to get a little bit darker green. And I'm going to come in and we're going to identify just a little bit more some of the palm fronds here and there. And you can start to see now, see the layering going on. Continuing on, we'll add just a little bit more, and I'm not covering up what I already did. That part is still there, and I'm going to go ahead and just put in a couple of these little tops to the palm tree. You'll get these on the tops. These are the new shoots that eventually come out that turn into palm fronds. But what I'll do is I'll continue on just a little darker in a couple areas. Just a little layering is what I'm doing. Not covering up again what I did, but just a little bit more action going on. You can start to see how it identifies a little better. Again, ultramarine blue deep, hooker green deep, to get just a little bit darker, keeping it simple, just showing some palm fronds here and there. Now as I get down to this area that we talked about earlier being the base of the palm fronds, we'll get just a little darker in a couple areas there too. just to showcase a little better some of the palm fronds that are past their prime and they're turned brown now. So now we've got the base of that. Let's do a little bit with the base of this palm tree too, the tree trunk. Let's have a little side of it maybe a little darker and one side maybe a little lighter. So we'll have that, and that'll help give it just a little bit of contour. Now sometimes with these palm trees they have some ridges or rims in them, ridges or rings in them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to indicate just a couple of them. I would say to you, don't get too carried away with too many of these little rings or ridges, because it tends to look a little too hokey when you do that. So just a little suggestion of one or two of those works nicely. That's all you'll need. So there we've got a very simple approach to doing a native palm tree. Now one thing I want to do is where the brown areas, I'll still put in maybe a little touch of the dark bluish green in a couple areas to give you a little bit more detail there. See how that was done very simply? Along the edge of the palm frond we may want to just hit it and get just a little, or palm tree trunk would just get a little darker there as well. Gives you that contour, okay? So that's how simple it is. Now how would I anchor it? Very simply, just take some of the color in your palette and have a little fun and anchor it, sort of drawing the color away from the base of it, and it gives you that illusion that there's ground or grass right there. It's that simple. Okay, let's move on and let's look at doing the coconut palm now. Same idea. We're going to come in and do basically an underpainting first. We'll dry it and then I'll come back and put the detail in. Let me move this over so you can see it now in the middle. There we go. Now let's take the same idea. Let's go ahead and put in, I've got some coconuts in this one. It's not necessary that you put them in, but I've got some there. We'll mix up some of the colors that you'd see in the coconuts, and they start out green, and then of course they change color as they start to go through their phases of ripening. So I'm going to put in a little bit of color where there's coconut palms. Some of the coconut palms will be covered up. Some of it will still show. So there'll be some overlapping going on there. And so we'll just put that in and then we'll go from there. Now what I want to do is I want to continue with some of that color down into the tree trunk. So let me go back to my 1/2-inch brush in this case. And again, we'll put some of this color in the tree trunk. And I think it's important to have similar colors in the tree trunk that are in the palm frond. So you'll see me put in a little green, there might be a touch of brown and so forth. And that way it creates a little color harmony so it doesn't look like a separate part of the tree. So we'll do a little bit of that, and then I'll come in and put a little bit more suggestion of color in later. Let's go back up to the palm frond again. Let's do the same as we did with the other palm tree. Let's put in some of the palm fronds at the bottom that may have already turned a little brown. So we'll just suggest a few of those in there. Same idea. It just gives a little more realistic look when you do that. So just a couple of palm fronds here and there. Now what I'll do is I'll switch. I'll go to my greens now. And again, I'm picking up some of my light green for varieties, some of my darker green, and we'll have a variety of color going on. And again, I would not take a small round brush as an example and start painting all of the little feeders that come off of the palm frond. The reason I say that, it starts to get a little bit too busy and it doesn't look realistic at that point. So let's come on down and pick up another color green and have a little variety of color going on. And I'll make some more palm fronds. I did a rough sketch and I didn't put a lot of palm fronds on, but now I can do it with just my brush and my paint. So we'll have some of the palm fronds coming off the edge of the palm tree here. We'll do some on the other side over here. But the key is you'll notice a variety of color. A couple of palm fronds going straight up. Now the coconut palm has a lot wider fronds than the traditional palm that grows as a native here in the U.S. and the Southeast. So just a few suggestions of palm fronds here and there. Keep it simple. Keep it loose. And again, practice doing this. Do it 7, 8, 9 times, and the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. So we'll come back in, and then we'll dry this and come back, and then we'll put in another layer of palm fronds to give a little bit more realistic look. Very simply, like so. Okay, let's get a little more height on this palm tree. Let's come up here and give it just a little bit more at the top. Like so, just a few more fronds coming off the top, and then maybe on the other side as well. We'll do the same idea, just to keep it simple, like so. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry this, then I'll come back, Then we'll add some darks on here just to identify the tree a little bit more. Now it's dry, and it must be dry to do the second phase. So what I want to do is, just like I did with the first palm tree over here on this side, is I want to come in and I want to put another layer of palm tree on top here. So I'm going to go back to my 1/2" brush again. Let's go ahead and start here at the top, and I'll pick up a little bit of the Hooker Green Deep, and I'll throw in again some of the Ultramarine Blue Deep, and we'll do a little layering to give it a little more identity. So you can start to see how it, again, it all shapes up. And again, I'm not going to cover up what I already did. Only part of that's going to be covered. So it'll give you an idea of some depth in the palm trees. So you can see already what's happening here. So let's pick up a little more dark on that. Let's pick up a little more of the Ultramarine Blue Deep and get maybe even a little darker in a couple of cases here. Don't do it everywhere again. Don't cover up everything, and don't get that small brush out and think that's going to be a better way of doing it. Believe me, the looser and the broader the brush strokes in this case, I think the more realistic, loose and free your palm tree will look. And it won't look so busy and so, as I call, hokey, that, it's just not pleasant to look at. This way, there's more pleasantness in the palm tree itself. All right, you can start to see how it's developing here. Now let's go on just a little farther. Let's put in a little bit of color on these palm fronds here. Then I want to get down. I want to remember now I do have my darker area here, or my browner area where these palm fronds are. So we'll come in and put some more dark on those, and we'll do the same idea. Let's not get too bold with it, but just a few brush strokes there as well to identify this a little better, give it a little bit more depth. Same idea. I'll do the same thing I did before. I'm going to come in and do the palm fronds, and we'll get a part of the palm tree trunk, and we'll come in and put a little dark to one side and keep it a little lighter on the other side. So I've placed some dark in. Now with just water on my brush, I took the paint out, I'm just going to soften this edge a little bit just to give it, and much of this is covered up, and the coconuts may be covered up here. We can come back and re-identify a couple of those. Keeping it very simple, let's take and throw just a little bit of green in where the brown is to make it a little bit more interesting there. Just a little bit to give it color variety, like so. Now I'm going to dry this one more time. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to just put a couple little finishing touches on it, and you'll see exactly how it looks. So let me go ahead and dry this right now. Now it's completely dry, and what I want to do is I want to put a couple of details in the palm tree here. One of the things I want to do is I want to come in and put a couple of those coconuts in. So I'll mix up, in this case, I'll get my round brush, I'll mix up a little bit of my burnt sienna and a little bit of my Hooker Green Deep, and I'll get a sort of a greenish brown color. And then what I'll do is I'll come in and put in just a suggestion of a couple of those coconuts. So we'll do that for you, like so. Don't get carried away with them, and overlap the shapes a little bit. So I've got an area of coconuts there, and I hope you can see that, but it's just an area of coconut here on the tree. And if it's a little too dark, we can lighten a couple of them, of course. So we've got a couple of coconuts there, and again, don't get carried away with it. And then what I'll do is I'll add just a little more dark to a couple of areas of the palm tree. Now this one, we talked about the rims and the ridges around the palm tree trunk. We'll suggest a couple of those as well. But again, I would simply suggest be very careful. Don't get too carried away with it, because it does look a little hokey. So just a suggestion of a couple of those works nicely. And then a little darker on that side. Let me do the same thing with you. Let me go ahead and anchor the coconut palm to the ground with just a little bit of color, and then you can see how we would finish this out as an example. So let's put just a little bit of color out here. Then if you want to, put just a couple of coconuts on the ground that have fallen, we can do that as well. Just very simply. And that's how easy it is. I hope you've enjoyed this particular lesson on coconut palms and also the traditional palm. For more information, check out my website at tomjonesartist.com or email me at tom@tomjonesartist.com. Let me hear from you, and I will be back later to show you another free art lesson. Thanks for joining me.